The queen sacrifice. I mean, when's the last time you actually sacrificed your queen in the context that wasn't a back rank checkmate in a puzzle rush? There's just something beautiful about a sound queen sacrifice, but with the beauty comes the risk. You can't just go shucking away your queen in every game. I actually managed to sacrifice my queen by accident. And without further ado, let's jump into the game. So we have this Lichess game. I've analysed it on chess.com. That's why the ratings are a little bit higher. So I open with e4, e5, knight f3, d6. This is called the Philidor defense. So this opening was seen as the best move back in time of Damokhan Philidor, who was basically the world champion in around, I believe it was the 14th century. But the reason you wouldn't play as these days is because if you have a central pawn, you might want to get another piece out. Just get your knight out, develop your knight, you have another piece into the game, and you can defend this pawn without having to commit your pawn here. Because you can see, this bishop is not happy. It's just blocked in for the remainder of the game. You think, well, I can get it out in the other diagonal, but again, you're just looking at another pawn, which the centre might open up, but it's just not an ideal way to play. It's still pretty, there's just better ways to defend this pawn these days. So I go d4, immediately striking back in the centre. This is just classic theory. Basically, if you want to play the Italian game, which we don't really end up with here, but in terms of e4 positions, if you can play d4, you should, as a general rule of thumb. So we see knight d7, and I just choose to exchange the pawns. I was thinking after knight takes, I can maybe take back and get my queen out or something, but that didn't end up happening. So we just see he exchanges back. So we see bishop to c4. Okay, we pretty much have an Italian game almost, with the difference being this knight is on d7 instead of c6. So now this pawn is being defended a bit weirdly. The queens are blocked, so it's a bit of a strange dynamic here. So let me see h6, and apparently I had an opportunity to sacrifice my bishop here, but that was a pretty strange line. So we're going to go knight c3, bishop to b4, and because of that I just castled. I think the doubling of this structure doesn't matter. And at this point in the game it was a bit weird. This guy pre-moved bishop to d3. In a 10-minute game he pre-moved. I was thinking, that's very interesting. So I took and he pre-moved this as well. So I was thinking, wait, he's pre-moving everything. What's going on here? So I thought, if you're a bullet player, you might know about the bullet trick. And I thought, if he's going to keep pre-moving, I'm going to take advantage of this. Boom! Queen takes d7. My reasoning being that in this position, he would pre-move castling. So I gave him time to set his pre-move up, and I played the move, which in hindsight was absolutely terrible, because in a check, this would violate the pre-move. So you can't castle when you're in check. This is a pretty terrible move. But as it turns out, I actually had quite a little bit of compensation. You know, not much, but a smidgen. And this position was actually quite practically fairly easy to play, as it turned out. So he took, I took with a knight, and as you can see, we're down 5 points of material, but the position is actually kind of good for me. You know, I have this pressure here. Decided down to switch to material. There's some practical chances. There's bishop's pins. Rook might come to this file, as we can see. So he castles, thinking it's going to protect this pawn, but then that just allows me to go rook d1, best move, and pin the bishop to the queen. And now, how do you defend this bishop? Well, you can't. So he moves the rook. This is a bad move, actually, because I can take. And now you can see I've recaptured the piece, so now I'm only down 2 points of material. So, of course, the queen is under pressure. Queen's got to move out the way. And the rook is moved. But you can see that square is defended, so I can just take. Bishop takes f7. King has to move, of course. And I take the rook, and suddenly, I'm winning. So he takes back my bishop, but the rook's not done. This knight is weak as well. How can I threaten that? Bishop to a3, not a move you see very often. That knight's pressured again. If you want to move the knight, I mean, I'm just going to be taking more pawns. I'm just hoovering up. So he decides to sacrifice his queen back. This sacrifice, a little bit more sound than mine. Of course, my sacrifice, it wasn't on purpose, but I ended up having a bit of chances that he sort of misplayed it a bit, and that gave me a chance to get back in the game. So we see knight takes d7, I accept the sacrifice of his queen. He has to take back, of course, and I get my last piece into the game, Paul Morphy style, rook to d1 check. Developing a piece with a check. It's always lovely because then you have a tempo to play with. So king e6, and I decide to play f4. Getting another pawn into the game. This limits the movement of the knight even further. And if he goes here, I can even fork it. So this knight is not very happy. It's not very in the game. b6, maybe trying to play for some c5, trying to block my bishop out of the game. But I'm just faster. I can go f6 check, trying to force the king back. And once the king's back there, I just have rook d7. This pins the knight to the king, so his knight now cannot move. And it's also under threat. So I think here he probably should have played c5. But instead he decided to defend the knight, which is sort of a bit of a more rookie move, I guess. So I'm like, okay, that's why I came here. I'll take the pawn, because I calculated this. He goes forwards. I'm like, okay, I'll take another pawn. And then he moves away. And as you can see, I'm just completely winning. I'm up 4 points of material from being down a queen for a bishop. It's just ridiculous. So he tries to break into the game. Takes. And look how many pawns I have. I've got the juicer army. He's only got 3. And I take again because he had to take back with the rook. Sorry, he had to take the rook so the king's away. Deflected off to the square. This pawn takes, and look at, he's got 2 pawns, 7 pawns to 2. Up 5 points of material. I mean, these are doubled, so we could say call that 6 pawns. King f6. I bring my king, move my pawns, and you can see he's running out of moves. He has to defend this promotion and this promotion, because obviously I can make a pass pawn on either flank. So I go c4, he has to commit to a direction, and after I moves away, he exchanges the pawns. Now my king can just set up the red carpet for this pawn to promote. I can just block, cut off all these squares, and if he tries to come in, I can always just do this, and after this exchange, this pawn is just quicker. So of course he can't allow that. So we see king e5, I'm just pushing the pawn, a6, a7, a8. He takes my pawns, I don't care. He moves here, it's a bit strange, so I took that pawn as well. And in this position, my opponent resigned the game after my accidental queen sacrifice. Could be what they call in the chess community a red brilliant, a blunder that ended up being quite good. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Can't say I sacrificed my queen too often in my real games. I think it was my first queen sacrifice in quite a while. So if you enjoyed that video, there should be another one popping up here that YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy the most. So probably good to give that one a watch. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one.